Hey, welcome to your local fast food chain. Can I take your order?
Yeah, can I get a double cheeseburger, large fries, some tots, and I guess a diet soda?
Hi, it's Sav and Jess. Welcome to And a Diet Soda, an opportunity for people to celebrate their successes, share their failures, and hopefully give a little advice on all things relatable along the way.
This community is for appreciating the little things and fostering positive mindsets and intuitive thoughts by talking to people, because chances are they've been through it too.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Sav.
And I'm Jess, and welcome to And a Diet Soda, episode 10, Intuitive Eating with a Registered Dietitian.
Today, we're bringing the podcast full circle to discuss intuitive eating with a registered dietitian. Kylee Fetzner is an RD who is a prominent figure on social media and really breaks down how many of us feel about our relationship with food and how to better that relationship. We'll be discussing everything from body image to self-confidence to mental health and how it relates to nutrition and intuitive eating. So thank you so much, Kylee, for joining us. We've been super excited to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been super excited for this as well. This is my first podcast, so I've been really looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Yay! Well, we're gonna just kind of jump into the questions. Can you take us through the beginning of your story and kind of what brought you onto the path of intuitive eating, and maybe just kind of quickly explain also what intuitive eating for those who don't know?
Yeah, definitely. So, first off, starting with me and my story, I did struggle with my own eating struggles. Definitely, it started in high school for me. I ended up having an eating disorder. I got help with that and everything. And then as time went on, I was stuck with what I wanted to do. I chose to become a registered dietitian, and I'm really happy I did because I ended up finding intuitive eating. And once I recovered from my eating disorder, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do, was help other people that are struggling with disordered eating, binge eating, and using intuitive eating to kind of help them through that. So that's very short story. I could totally keep going on and on, but I want to just keep it short and sweet. But yeah, with intuitive eating, overall, it's like a non-diet approach to eating that helps you get back in touch with your internal cues like hunger and fullness, which a lot of us end up losing those cues over time when we keep going on diet after diet. It helps you kind of break free from that chronic dieting and overall can help you heal your relationship with food.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much for breaking it down again. We've talked about it slightly in a couple of our first episodes, so we just wanted to be able to bring it full circle because that alone is kind of where the podcast sprouted within our minds. So we do want to know a little bit about how you found your love for dietetics and at what point in your journey did you decide really to pursue that as a career?
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of a common trend with a lot of dietitians that ended up going to intuitive eating. It's kind of like you're in maybe this disordered mindset a little bit and you're kind of wanting to figure out that perfect way of eating. And sometimes you figure out, wow, I really am passionate about nutrition and learning the science about all of this. And it's just really fascinating. But it does get to that point where you are doing it in hopes that you are going to find the perfect way of eating. And in all honesty, there is no perfect way of eating. But that's how it really started for me. I was just really curious about how can I even get better at this? Because I was in that mindset of really working out, really tracking calories to the point of obsession. So it got me there. And then once I was in the dietetics program, I was learning more and more. And I was still struggling. And I think that's what is so wild, is I think that can be kind of common within the dietetics field, to be honest. A lot of people do struggle with their own disordered eating. But yeah, overall, it was just my own fascination of really getting into it to the point of just feeling obsessed and I want to learn more and more and more. But now it's very different where I bring in the intuitive eating aspect and nutrition to, so it's a more healthy way of looking at it. It's not one extreme to the other.
Right, for sure. I mean, we're definitely going to get into, I love that you said that it's not the same for everyone. I think that's really important to remember that one thing that works for one person is definitely not something that has to work for the other person. And so we're going to talk about that later for sure. But right now, I want to focus on how cool it is that you kind of meshed this science and mental health and like psychology aspect of it together, because it's so intertwined and people don't think about it that often, but it's such an important mental health aspect. So I guess can you kind of discuss like why people may binge eat while others starve themselves and how that kind of all plays into each other as I mean, there's so many different forms of eating disorders that I'm sure we can all relate to in one point or another.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think this area is so nuanced. So it's like I definitely really focus on like the binge eating aspect. So it's like everyone is so different with like how their relation turns out with food, because honestly, some people might be able to track calories, track macros, and be completely fine. But then there's other people that do that and they take it to the extreme where they end up, they're like, wow, I'm at this point. So this is like amazing. So I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep going until it's like, it's that point where it's like, wow, I didn't know it was going to end up being like this. So for a lot of people that struggle with binge eating, it can be just due to restriction. They are restricting. So later on in the day, they might have a binge, or the next day they might have a binge. It catches up with them. And some people, it is more so a trauma. So they're dealing with more of the emotional aspect of it. So that's why it's so important for a lot of people to work with therapists to kind of dive more into that emotional part, where I feel like I mostly focus on like the restriction. And it's so awesome for a lot of people to realize like, wow, like eating regularly throughout the day is literally helping me not have a binge. But it is like super scary for people because they are afraid that they might still binge if they are eating more throughout the day as well. Yeah, so I've also noticed, kind of backtracking, people that might struggle with just the restriction, or it may lead into more so like bulimia a little bit, is they will struggle with that for a while, and then sometimes they can like transfer over to just binge eating. So sometimes like with eating disorders or disordered eating, like you can go through different types, like orthorexia, where you're just focusing on clean eating. So it's like all like intertwined, I would say, at the same time. Like obviously you can hit certain check marks and be like, yes, clinically diagnosed, you are this, but it's a little hard to like know specifically.
Yeah, the like roller coaster of which step you might be in the process. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd love to know a little bit about your personal experience with, binge eating or your eating disorder, and whatever you feel the most comfortable with kind of discussing. And we really want to know, as a dietitian and everything that you've learned through your education, if like you think that there are more people in the world that suffer from eating disorders than we really think, and how serious that may be. Obviously, that's led you to an amazing platform where you share and break down these little bit of snippets of, these moments of eating. But we really wanted to learn about your experience and overall people who may have eating disorders that are undiagnosed.
Yeah, for me, mine, I first kind of started off with just that restriction. Like, honestly, it was from a very, like, I don't even know, like, genuine place where I was like, oh, you know what? I just like want to start like working out a little bit more. I want to start eating like some healthier foods, maybe. And then I did that. And then it took me to the extreme where I was like, I just wanted to keep doing it, keep doing it. And I didn't even see a problem with it. I was like, no, this is just me. This is what I like to do. And then over time, people honestly started seeing differences with me. I know it can affect anyone, like eating disorders, they don't have to look a certain way, but I definitely was like looking like a different way than I used to. So people were getting really alarmed by that. And while I was dealing with the restriction piece and like barely eating, that's not when I thought I had a problem. It was once it like went to the other extreme of me binging all the time. It started happening like every single day. I remember just being in high school in class and like my whole mind was just consumed by food and planning out what I'm gonna eat when I get back home, and like planning out, that's all my mind was thinking about. Like I feel like I had no energy to think about anything else. So once it got to that extreme where I was like binging almost every single day, I ended up like reaching out to my mom, to be honest. And I was like, something's wrong with me. I'm terrified because I don't know why this is happening to me, which is kind of shocking that I was the one that was like, hey, I need help, like really bad. And luckily my mom like listened to me, and she was totally willing to help me out and everything. And then I ended up getting help at a treatment center. So I went through all of that, like seeing how that whole world was, which was really wild. It helped me in a sense of like knowing that there is other people that are struggling with that as well. Because I think back in the day a little bit, even though it wasn't like super long ago, there wasn't so many people talking about these things on social media and being very open about like, hey, this happens to like me as well. It was just, no one was really talking about it. So I felt like something was seriously just wrong with me. And then once I got out of the treatment center, I was still struggling. And then I just was like, I thought I was like addicted to food. And then I just like went to like everything, and I was just trying to figure everything out. And it got to the point where I finally was like, you know what? Like I have been trying to lose weight and lose weight and lose weight. That's all my mind wanted to do. Like that's all I wanted. And then once I finally said like, hey, I just can't keep trying to do this anymore, was the moment that like my binges started to stop. Which is really hard to like get to that point though, because I think that's such a big desire for people, is wanting to lose that weight, which is totally normal. I totally get it. But it is crazy that like once you're like, hey, I'm done with this, I'm going to allow myself have foods and not like stress about it so much, it gets to that point where like you notice your binges are starting to decrease. And then that's when I was like, I'm sticking with this. And then it started just like decreasing more and more. And then I got to the point where I was like, wow, I'm actually a lot better. And it's just crazy because you think in your own mind that you truly can be addicted to food or things like that. And I know that that's a very hot topic, but I truly thought that. I literally was convinced that I was going to have to live my entire life struggling with binge eating. And I always like let people know that, because it's like that's such a real feeling. And I truly believe that. So it always shocks me that I'm like at this point where I've been recovered for a while now. So it's really awesome. I'm sorry, I think I forgot the one question you also were asking.
No, that's okay. I actually just wanted to quickly ask if you could explain what binge eating is, because I don't think that Jess and I have ever talked about that directly. And so we just wanted to know if you could explain what binge eating was. And I think the other part of my question was if you think that there are more people in the world that are suffering from eating disorders than we really think that there are.
Okay, yeah, that was the one. So with binge eating, this is a little difficult, I would say, because there's like binge eating disorder where it does check certain boxes off, and it's like pretty extreme. It's like eating large amounts of food within a short amount of time. It doesn't say like any specific numbers or anything like that. So it kind of can range from person to person, but it is also like having those feelings of guilt and shame afterwards, and like feeling super, super depressed. And sometimes it's even like when you are having a binge, like you're numbing out, you're almost blacking out. You don't even remember what just happened. So that can be more of an extreme, whereas like a lot of people do struggle with just like binge eating. So it's not like the disorder itself. Like some people will be like, I think I had a binge, and then they will kind of express how much food they may have had. And for a lot of people, they would probably be like, no, I don't think that's necessarily a binge, but it comes with those feelings of guilt and shame afterwards. And then it comes with the restriction, and then the binge eating again, and then it just creates that cycle. So I always like let people know, like if you're struggling with like eating and things like that after you're eating every time, like feelings of guilt and shame, like you definitely deserve to get help from people. Like I think sometimes they're like, you know what, I'm not sick enough. I've like, that's very common for a lot of people to say, like it's not to that extreme, but when you have those feelings, like it can take over your whole entire life. So it's really important to get help, even if you feel like it's not to that extent.
I feel like you're
thank
talking
you.
directly to me. But
That's the sad part is I'm like, yep, I
I
know.
know,
I know that
right?
moment. I've been there. Like
Seriously,
how
yeah.
who hasn't been there, which is the saddest part. That's why it's like
Right.
how I mean, do all of us have eating disorders or do we just like does society just make us feel like this just because we're literally eating? And at what point did eating food like stop being fueling our body and like, oh, you're gonna get fat? That just blows me.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, certainly like the really extreme cases that you just described, they of course they check all the boxes like that, but I think the difference is when you if you're if you have those negative thoughts about food, the difference between making it a disorder and making it healthy and just living and having yourself like free to eat whatever you want is just the thought that you have after. And so if you have negative thoughts after, that's the unhealthy part. And if you have the positive thoughts after and just being okay with whatever you're eating, then that's the healthy part. And so I think that's the goal. It's not, no one's ever trying to tell you the exact foods that you should eat. And I know plenty of people are on diet plans and everything, but the ultimate goal is just that you feel good about yourself and that your body is healthy, not that you eat kale every single day.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. For my one, because I remember I made that one video of like the disordered thoughts, and it got so many people. Like, I don't know what happened. It was just TikTok. So you never know which video is going to like get out there a little bit more. And so many people were like, I thought this was normal. I thought this was normal. This is me. And like, I get where it can become worrisome because at the same time, I don't want other people to worry and be like, oh my God, do I have an eating disorder now? It's more so like, hey, like if you're having these thoughts all the time, that can become a problem, because I think it's just knowing now, like how I view food is so different than how I used to. So it's like very possible to just like more so focus on like how food makes me feel rather than like, oh my God, I cannot eat this. Like I should not be eating this. That is not good for me. Like that's like very more extreme, but it's super common with people because depends who you're around as well. And like just society in general, we really do demonize food, and like there's a lot of like fear mongering with food. So it's pretty tough. But also I think I wanted to answer that binge eating question. I think it's super common. I think it's like,
Oh, people having eating disorders.
yeah, well, maybe not eating disorders to that extent, but definitely disordered eating is like insanely common. Like how many DMs I get saying like, hey, I really resonate with that, with like, and it's just, it breaks my heart because it's also very young girls. So it's like, it's just so sad that it gets to that young of an age. But no, it is so common, but they are afraid to like open up to people about it because they feel like a lot of people aren't struggling, but at the same time, it's like people are struggling, but no one's talking about it. So it's like, you just never know. And it's just this like weird thing, like, do I bring it up, do I not? Because if people don't understand, it's like it kind of hurts, it really hurts for them to be like no and just kind of ignore that. So
Yeah, I actually think that's great. Jess has a question coming up that is going to lead perfectly into this because I think that people hear intuitive eating or even like the like love your body how it is, like every body is worth it no matter the size, right? Like I think that some people start to think, well, how is that healthy? And that's not really what intuitive eating is. It's mostly about, fulfilling your body and your needs. And if you're like, yeah, I just want that peanut butter cup, I can have one and then I can go on with my day, rather than I'm that person who personally, if I want that peanut butter cup, I won't eat it for 2 weeks, or I used to be this way, I should say. And then I would eat the entire bag sitting down in one sitting instead of just having the one time. So I'll let Jess ask your question.
So how does the health aspect fit into intuitive eating? Like how does utilizing intuitive eating facilitate mental health and physical health?
So with the intuitive eating book, like the very last chapter is like honor your health with gentle nutrition. So like 100% we care about people's health, and we know that certain foods are more nutritious than other foods 100%, and certain foods are going to make you feel a lot better. It's just to that point when you are struggling with disordered eating or binge eating, or just anyone that's been on diet after diet, you like really demonize certain foods, or certain foods are very forbidden. So it's like, oh my God, I cannot eat that. I can't eat that. And then you like constantly you're thinking about it, or you're trying to fill that void of really wanting that satisfying food. So you eat everything else instead to fill that void. And then you end up coming back and maybe even eating more and more. And then it just creates this cycle of like, oh my, this is why I can't have these foods. So then you go back on a diet again and you're like, see, I need structure like this, because if I let myself have that, I just binge and all these things. But once you like make peace with food, it can take some time to do all this stuff. But then you get to that point where you're like, oh, I'm actually paying attention to like how foods are making me feel. And then you get to that point where you notice that certain foods, probably more nutritious foods, are going to make you feel a lot better, where you can go and do certain activities and you just feel better overall and mentally. Like your mental health isn't so consumed by worrying about food or worrying about the calories or worrying if it's good or bad. You're more so just like, will this food make me feel good for what I have to do today? Like it's more so focused on that, which is such an amazing point to get to, because you know that you can have those delicious, yummy foods that people might deem as bad, but you don't feel like you have to binge on the whole thing, because binging is like so uncomfortable. Like it's not even enjoyable, to be honest. Like, and then you just keep doing the cycle over and over.
Yeah. Obviously, this is like years of unbelievable strength and training on your part, and through the recovery center and through like all of your clients, I'm sure, help and your research, and you're obviously like a very put together person, and it's so easy to like paint such a pretty picture with this, but I'm sure you come across clients all the time where it just must like take you back to how like it's so personal for you. I mean, it's just, it makes you really good at what you do because it's so personal, but I'd imagine it's really hard to talk to people and bring all that up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that, because I feel like I've always been afraid of that. Like for a while, like before this, like probably a couple of years ago, I was like, can I do this work if I am like in this mindset? Like I don't want to obviously harm anyone, but now I'm like to the point where I'm so fully recovered that I'm like, I see this side, how like amazing it is to get past this. And I'm like, I just want everyone to get here so badly. And I just know, but also, yeah, it's like hearing them out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I relate to exactly what you're saying, but like trying not to say that and just like helping them through it. But yeah, no, it definitely does. And sometimes it like sparks things that I completely forgot, because I think a lot of people that struggled with eating or eating disorders or anything like that, sometimes you like black out those memories where you're like, that was such a dark time, I don't want to think about it. So it's like, I don't know, I feel like I started remembering so many things that I did struggle with, but it's definitely also helped me relate to all my clients.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Because it's like, no, trust me, I've been through it and you can get through it too, I promise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I also related to what you said a little bit ago about how okay, I'll just tell you, it popped in my head. I've had so many moments where I said like a Reese's peanut butter cup or something, but I just had like, I love sweets. It's always been my thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that. And I push it off and I'll eat like every single piece of fruit I have in my sight, anything I can get that stimulates sweetness. And I end up eating it as it is. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And it's crazy because you do black out those moments. And now that, we're learning about this and I got my master's in nutrition, I started to learn and I was just like, I can relate with you on that point where you're like, wow, I almost forget going through that. And it's crazy. That's like, I don't even know. It's like, it's a whole different life that you've lived. And it was so unhealthy. And I guess that's just the brain's natural response to like, it is traumatic. I mean, you block out that traumatic experience where you're like, that's like an ultimate hatred towards yourself, is beating yourself up for like trying to eat and fuel your body. So I just felt the need to share that, I guess.
Yeah. I'm sure there's so many, like, it totally depends on the client and everything, but especially for people listening, and if this resonates with them at all, like, is there anything that you tell your clients, like, when you first meet them, or anything that either to comfort them or to help them a little bit at the very start of their journey to having a better relationship with themselves and with food, and any like little pieces of advice that you could think of off the top of your head?
Yeah, this is something that I try to do with like everyone because it helps them really stay in the process and be hopeful, and like it just really helps them through is thinking about a why. When I am talking to a client, I always ask them like what their why is. Why do they want to do this process? Why do they want to heal their relationship with food, find food freedom? And it just helps them stay focused in the whole process because it is really hard. It's going to be a lot of good and bad days. And on those bad days, it's just good to remind yourself, like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this because um, if I want to have a kid, or maybe you do have a kid right now, you just want to like pass down a healthy relationship with food rather than like a disordered or like a diet mindset relationship with food, or because you just want to have the freedom and the mental energy. Like it is so consuming in your mind. So it's just really nice to like be able to do things with your friends or whoever and not be so focused on food. And I always let people know as well, like the process is so different for everyone, like the time it's going to take. And just reminding them of that so that it's not like, oh, this is going to happen within 4 weeks and you're going to be good to go. Like letting them know it's like, it's important to be patient and like there can be ups and downs, but like having support, I think is so important for people because they can they have someone at least to go to and like know that they can talk about their struggles and their challenges, even if it's like just a family member or a friend, like having someone that's not like, I don't know, having their strong opinion about diets or something, because it can be really hard when someone else is like trying to do this and you're trying to heal your relationship with food.
Absolutely.
Yes. So a couple of things from what you just said. So I just want to highlight how all the reasons that you gave for doing this for yourself, they're not physical, they're not, or not appearances, they're not superficial. Everything was about how you're feeling. Everything was about family, love, loving yourself. I mean, you have to do it based on the way that your body is feeling. I don't know how else to put it, but like your mental health and your physical health. It can't be a a um or at least for me it can't. I'm sure for some people it can be, but for me it can't be like a size goal or something like that, or else it's never going to happen. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like that expression, look good, feel good. Like it's the complete opposite for me. If I feel good, then eventually I'm going to start like looking quote unquote good or whatever. But so I think that's like a really important thing to highlight, is for your goals to be emotional and in that different category than getting to like a size goal or a weight goal or something like that. And also a support system, super important. Yes, you guys, if you don't have anyone that you feel like you can reach out to, I know you don't know us, or maybe you do, but all three of us are happy to talk with anyone. I mean, these two are the professionals over here, but I'm always here to lend an ear, and I know that these guys are too. So
Totally. Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautifully said, Jess. I love that. um, so how does exercising typically look with people who are utilizing intuitive eating or going through any type of disordered eating, or even in eating disorder themselves? And what is the healthy way to look at exercise, just as you're trying to look at food in a healthy way as well? And how do those kind of mesh together? It's like that's the trifecta right there, is like trying to come at peace with yourself and your food and your body, right?
Definitely. The exercise piece can be super complicated, especially with people's like past history. So if people were doing physical activity just to like burn calories, or whenever they went on a diet, like that's the only time they would do physical activity because they were just trying to lose weight. They look at exercise in a very negative way. They honestly usually just hate it and they don't want anything to do with it, which it makes sense because when you're trying to like lower your calories and work out, you're gonna feel horrible because that's like no energy at all. But then some people, they do like certain activities. So I never try to like tell people like, hey, no, you need to take an exercise break because this is not good for you. I kind of like try to meet people halfway, because I know for some people that's terrifying. If they really enjoy exercising, that's something they really like to do. That might be really hard for them to just give up. But it's also super important to find things that you like. So if like you genuinely like lifting weights, definitely do that. But if like you hate it, don't make yourself do that, because a lot of people are doing it just for looks base. They want to look a certain way. They don't really care about how they are feeling. So it's so important to say you're trying a new activity, kind of tuning in with yourself throughout the activity. Like, how am I feeling? Like, am I feeling good while I'm doing this? Am I enjoying it? And checking in with yourself like that, rather than like looking in the mirror and being like, how does my body look in this? How do I look while I'm doing this? Like, because that can just tear you down, to be honest, for a lot of people. So again, like kind of just focusing more so inward and asking yourself those questions and getting curious, because it's normal to not like certain activities compared to other activities. So it's really important to do that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. There are so many fun exercises out there. I mean, I feel like I've tried almost everything under the sun and hated a lot of it, but it's still important to try new things. Like, just get creative with it too. I mean, you don't have to go to like a normal gym. Like, you can literally do anything. I don't know. I'm like trying to think of examples right now and I can't even, but
Well, that's
like,
what, yeah.
like play volleyball. It's spring. It's so nice out. Like, so many of my friends are part of like kickball teams and volleyball and everything. And like, granted, we probably drink more calories than we burn, but it's still fun and like active, and that's still exercise.
Yeah, I was also going to say, yeah, there's so many different ways to get your body moving. And whether, I mean, it also depends on money. I mean, if you do have that money that you can go and spend like yoga classes, HIIT classes, boxing classes, swimming, like whatever you need to do. If you don't necessarily have the money or resources, going on a walk, going on a run, I don't know, YouTube has so many free like exercises that you can watch too and do. Just give yourself that slack too. It took me a very long time. I've been an athlete my whole life, and it took me my like almost my entire life to be like, okay, for me personally, it's yoga and weightlifting, and that's a combination that I like. And Jess might hate both of those, and that's totally okay, because she has her own things for her bodies. And we're just lucky enough to have these like all of these options, because you get to decide what's good for you. And so be tender with yourself, as we always say with everything, giving yourself grace, right? But just allow yourself to choose. And it's okay to go to like a workout class or something and be like, well, that was fun, but I'm never doing that again. What am I going to do next? Right.
Definitely. Sorry, I wanted to chime in really quick about the activities, because I always like think about the example of like a lot of people, at least like in high school, they did a lot of sports. And I feel like for a lot of people, they didn't think about it as like a workout or like I'm burning calories. They were just genuinely doing it, most people, because they wanted to like be around other people and like teamwork, and like it's more like a social thing and people are having fun. And I think people like don't put fun and physical activity together. I think they're like, they need to be separate. It shouldn't be enjoyable. So it's just like interesting to think about that and be like, did you like doing certain sports in high school, or did you also hate it? Because maybe you did, but.
Right. That's actually a good point as well, because I grew up playing softball and running laps and laps, and like, you don't recognize, if you are somebody who did grow up playing a sport, don't beat yourself up when you go into college and your body changes because you're not consistently moving. And that was a hard thing for me to be like, why is my body like, gosh, I'm changing so much? And I'm like, okay, well, I literally would play softball every single day for like I've played my entire life. So, you put on a couple pounds, whatever, you like, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I really wish that we could try to embrace the changes in our bodies throughout the stages of lives. And that's what we're trying to do here and talk about on this podcast, because man, if I could like just like line up all the pictures of my life of my body, it would seem so different, but it really wasn't like that much time in between. So again, just let yourself learn with like whatever situation is going on in your life. So we want to shift back to you a little bit. We appreciate you kind of going over your expertise with us. Can you walk us through a day in like your life, your normal day, and how your eating may look, even though it might be, again, this is for you and your personal life. We just are interested in kind of what that looks like for you.
Yeah. In all honesty, like this is my normal day of eating is I usually wake up actually pretty hungry, which is not normal for a lot of people. So I usually will make a breakfast super easy, quick. Like I'm really big on like just balanced meals because I feel very I just feel better throughout the day. So do you care if I give specific examples? I don't know if that's okay. I usually have like a wrap with eggs. I put bacon, I put cheese. I sometimes might add some veggies in there. And then I also put like fruit on the side. I try to just like make sure I feel kind of like good and balanced. And I think it's just super important. Like I feel like I view it so differently now than I used to, because I probably would have woke up and been like, okay, I'm just eating some fruit and that's it. Like it's so important to like have all those other foods and have those nutritious foods. But then I usually go to my other job, so I usually make something really quick, like a sandwich, and then I bring a ton of snacky foods. I try to make sure I always have enough food. Like if I feel like I don't have snack foods to snack on throughout the day, if I do get hungry, I feel very, I don't know, it's just super important for me to have that. And I know that's also like a privilege thing. I do have a lot of snacks that I can provide for myself and things like that. But also I snack throughout my car ride because I'm driving a lot of the time. And then I usually come back again. I get home and I eat again. And then I usually go work out, and then I come back and I eat it. I feel like I just like eat all the time, to be honest. Like I feel like I come back and then I eat, and then I always, for a lot of people, I know this scares people, but I usually have dinner and I just am that person. I like to have something sweet after. So I usually always have a little dessert. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think people really demonize that and they say like you shouldn't do that. And I get how that can be triggering for some people because they do feel like if I start eating that, I'm not going to be able to stop. But that's just something to me. Like I just like having something sweet, and then I'm usually very content, and then I'm just good for the rest of the night.
That's awesome. So I'm super excited to hear you. Like you said that you put bacon on your wrap, and I'm over here like, yay! So we've talked a lot on the podcast about vegan diets or plant-based diets, and which are awesome. And Sav has a really amazing account and has a bunch of recipes and is just like so awesome, and it works amazing for her and her body. We have yet to have someone on who is nutritionally conscious, and you're over here making it your livelihood and you incorporate meat into your diet. So what does that look like for you? And what have you heard? I mean, you're so in the industry. So what have you heard from other people about like, no, you should be plant-based, or no, Mediterranean is the way to go, and all of this different, like, how does that play into what you think is best, quote unquote, for nutrition?
Yeah. Yeah. So I know there's so many different ways like with nutrition that you can go, which is honestly like so cool. Like it's so cool that you can be like, you know what? I just want to try what it's like being a vegan or a vegetarian. Like, why not? For me, just with my past, I get a little nervous with trying to cut it out. And I think now if I tried, I would actually be fine. But I think in my mindset, I do have that like, oh, what if I got rid of that? Would I feel very scared that I'm going to fall back into my eating patterns? But I know that's not like that for so many people. I know for a lot of people, for vegan and stuff like that, it's more like a moral thing, which is amazing, or ethics thing. But yeah, no, I think there's so many different opinions though, with even just dietitians in general. Like some people might be like, don't have dairy or don't have that type of milk. Like it's very biased in a sense, but I'm all for like, do what works for you. If you feel deprived, that's probably not a good sign. If you like to have meat, have meat. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. And if it fits in, fine. I think just like, I know the word balance gets thrown around a lot, but I think that's what's really important too, because I know there's like some wild diets out there that are just like straight up meat, like, and that, I don't know, that's just kind of an extreme to it. but it's like, you can definitely incorporate everything. Like if you want to incorporate a salad and put chicken on it and then have fruit on the side and other things. And like, I think everything can fit. And I think it is important just for people to even test things out. Like, I guess you never know if you never try, to be honest. So
Yeah, that's huge. It's so hard to be somebody in one of these fields because of your education and what you learn. And we've talked also about like food security, and that's a huge concept of things. Like we cannot like have a conversation without recognizing that people have access to different things. And I totally understand for most people how cutting things out is very restrictive and it makes you feel that you are not able to eat the things that you want. It might be easier for some people to, throw on some chicken on top of a salad. For some people, like tempeh or tofu, whatever it is, it's one of the hardest parts being in health, because I learn so much about the science behind it and the physiology behind how different things affect your heart and your body. And it's like, I don't even think we can get to that. I truly don't think like I'll ever be able to work with people who aren't, or I'm not going to be able to work with any type of patient until they're fully okay with themselves and their eating. And then, you have to be able to try these different things, like you're saying, because you have to be okay with where you're at. You have to know what you have access to, and just eat whatever you want. Like we got to stop judging people too for like how they eat, because that is making them feel restricted as well, because they don't feel like they can even try to eat a salad without somebody commenting on it as well. So yeah, love that question.
Yeah.
What?
I hate that. I mean, I just what you just said about like eating a salad without someone commenting on it. And I just think about like so many times when you're out and it's like, I could like genuinely want a salad. Like at this point, I don't get salads because I want to cut calories. Half of the salads that you order have like just the same amount of nutritional whatever as the burger. But so many people will just be like, oh, really? Are you on a diet? Like, why are you just eating a salad? And it's like, why do you even have to comment on it? Like, why?
Yeah, you're like, maybe I just want the salad. And that's the coolest thing about intuitive eating. It's like, listen to your body, listen to what you want. But people have to stop commenting on other people's food and bodies. Like, who cares if Jess wants a salad or a burger? It doesn't even affect you. And it's like, you never know what somebody else's journey looks like and where they're at personally with it, and how Jess may be talking to herself in her mind. Like maybe it could be very damaging to another person as well to make comments on how they're eating. So
yeah, 100%. I just want to chime into that. Because no, it can be so triggering for people. And I think it takes them away from like, do I really enjoy this food? Am I liking how I'm feeling? And then you're like, oh, this person is questioning me. So like, should I be questioning my choice? Should I have not gotten this? Like, I feel like you kind of like, for a lot of people, like, especially maybe if you struggle with anxiety, like it's going to trigger you to have these wild thoughts. And then you kind of like maybe don't want to go out and eat with people because you're afraid that they're going to say anything. So then you just kind of be by yourself and you eat in private. So yeah, it can be triggering.
Yeah. Do you just totally random thought, do you ever coach on like specific based on your client, like if they have specific health problems, like if they're iron deficient or something like that? Does that ever come up in your line of work?
Nothing like that specifically. I do have people that they don't have celiac disease, but they are sensitive to gluten. So I will work with them through different choices and like help them find things that are still enjoyable and satisfying, because I know like certain food choices like that aren't always the most delicious, I would say. But yeah, it's like just kind of incorporating it that way. But also with a lot of people I know, they struggle with maybe even IBS or like stomach problems like that. And 100% they can be struggling with IBS, but I've also noticed a lot of people that struggle with disordered eating, they have a lot of stomach pains, and then once they resolve their disordered eating, those pains go away, and it's so amazing. Like that happened to me too. I was like, I have the worst stomach ever, and then once I kind of overcame my eating disordered eating, like my stomach was totally fine, and I was like, because I got, like the tube down my throat to look at my stomach. Like I had that whole procedure done. So I was like, it's just crazy. They couldn't find anything. And then once I got everything figured out, I was like, wow.
you feel better. Yeah, that's something that's huge. And I I just love like the GI system, like as a whole. I don't know. I just always think it's interesting, but it's crazy to think like 90% of the population is also deficient in fiber because we don't incorporate that enough. And fiber is how we feed our gut bacteria. And that for me is the hard part. I'm like, yes, eat how you want, focus on your intuitive eating, but also like, how do we coach people on getting nutrients that they need while also like telling them to find balance? What has your experience been with that?
Yeah. Something that I really focus on, especially people that struggle with binge eating, is that balanced meal. So like I will kind of explain like basic macronutrients to them, like this like carbohydrate will do this for your body, and like how it's so important, and feeling like noticing how you feel after your meal and how full you feel. Because obviously it will keep you fuller for longer compared to just having something like I don't know, something really quick. So that's always been super helpful for people to notice that. And then they realize, oh, adding in this type of bread does make me feel better. Like I think over time, like it's just playing around with it, but it is like when you do restrict certain foods for so long, you tend to just want that in the beginning. So it usually is maybe more the processed foods. So they're like, a lot of people get really scared. They're like, when am I going to start craving those more nutrient dense foods? Like, am I going to be just eating this all the time? And I totally get that fear because it really does feel like that in the beginning. But over time, once you realize, hey, I do have those foods, I can have them tomorrow if I want. I know that's hard for people that are food insecure, but over time, they'll realize, okay, I have the permission to have this and it's in my house. I'm totally cool. I don't need to eat it all right now. And then they realize over time that they can have those foods because they just genuinely want to. They don't have to force themselves to eat it, because I think that's what a lot of people do. They'll force themselves to have certain vegetables and things like that.
Yeah, I feel like listening to you talk about all this, I feel like I am like right in the middle of all of that. Like I think that, and I think there's that's the majority of people. Like there's people that can look back at their time and think, wow, like I've really grown, like look at all this progress that I've made. And then there are people that are right in the thick of it and they can't even see the light. But I think that the majority of people just like low-key struggle with it every day, and whether they like are aware of it or not, like that's how slight it is. I think that's why it's affecting me like so much hearing you talk, because I'm like even just today I literally got Sonic because like that's like Sav knows, everyone knows that's my weakness. I have a long day at work. I have to go back to work after this, but I worked at like 5 a.m. this morning, and so I don't have breakfast at 5 a.m. because I'm not hungry. And then I am just at work and it's go, 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 and I don't have time to eat. And so by the time I take a break at like 1, Sonic is the closest thing to work. And I don't know, you're like, I know I shouldn't, but then you think about it for a second and you're like, but it's okay and I'm okay with it. But you still have that thought at first where you're like, I shouldn't because I'll feel bad. But then like you're like slightly on the road to recovery and you're like, but it's okay.
Yeah. Do you tend to feel just feelings of guilt, or do you genuinely like feel sick and just bad overall? Like you feel tired or?
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure, bad food makes you feel a little bit more tired. Yeah, I think I've come a long way with like the self-talk for sure. Especially with what I'm eating. And then even just looking in the mirror too, that's such a huge thing to overcome that I'm always working on. I feel like so many other people are always working on, but just that positive, it's okay if you have that negative thought at first too, because I'll be standing in front of the mirror and be like, oh man, like this shirt used to fit a little bit different, but just like whip it back, and be like, I still look good. Like, look at these curves. I look good. So I don't know. I feel like I always try to end on a positive note, even if I have that negative thought to begin with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've noticed with almost every client I've had too is the body image. It's probably like one of the last things. Like it's very tough. Like it's super hard because it's like you're in that body, like your whole life. So it's not like you're just gonna be like, looking in the mirror, I love myself. Like it's not like that. It's more so just like accepting as you are right now. And that could be super hard for people. And it is probably the hardest thing. So I totally get that. And I have always said, like, sometimes the best moments is like when you just genuinely aren't even paying attention to your body. Like, to be honest, like I got to that point where I'm just like, I don't even really notice. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just know how I am and how I feel. It's really awesome getting to that point of noticing how you feel rather than how am I looking. But it takes time, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I feel like I live for those moments where you realize that you weren't self-conscious. Like you go through a whole day or a whole barbecue or something and you're wearing that tank top or whatever, and then like getting a little tipsy. But then you just like you're just like, man, like I don't really care right now. And it's so freeing and it's such a moment that I hope everyone gets to experience a lot.
Yeah, that brings us to a really good question that we had for your personal experience was like, how did you come to peace with your body and your eating as it was changing and growing?
Yeah, that was probably the hardest thing, to be honest. Again, is just it's especially I realize a lot of people that struggle with these things also kind of have some maybe body dysmorphia, so they see themselves so differently, or maybe it's other people will see them differently. So it's really tough like noticing those changes, and it's hard when you feel like people might comment on it. When maybe because some people don't say the right things, and I think everyone means well, though. Most people mean well about their comments, but sometimes people will comment things and you're like, oh, well, that really hurts. So then you kind of just like get in your head again, and it can take you back a little bit. But I think it just came to the point of like, this is how my body is, and by trying to restrict and do all of these things, it hasn't brought me any happiness. I think that's the biggest thing is like realizing like trying to alter my body so much literally hasn't brought me any happiness. And it's more so focusing on like how I feel inside. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but it really does. Like it comes from inner. Like if you don't really have that self-love or like kind of accepting you as you are, it's going to just be really hard. Like I feel like you're going to keep searching and searching, and usually it doesn't come from how your body looks.
Yeah, that's not even a little bit cheesy. I'm like, we just met and I'm like so proud of you. So, what do you tell yourself on the hard days when you just feel like it's just too much?
I would say I've had a lot of days that were like that, to be honest, that are just like rough. And I'm just like, maybe not so recently, but like I remember like how I used to feel 100%. And I would get really down on myself and I would just kind of nitpick everything that's wrong with me. And it just comes back to like, why am I doing this? Like, how is this serving me? I've noticed like just being very aware is like the biggest thing, noticing your thoughts, reframing them. That's like a huge thing I always try to focus on is like the first thing is always being self-aware. Like if you're not aware of that, you're really just harming yourself by telling yourself negative things. I think some people think that might be the best way to go about it, but it's very harmful because then you're going to start believing it and then things just start happening. So just like I think the craziest thing is, I don't know if this happens for a lot of people, but like you realize the next day you're okay. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, today is so hard. Oh my gosh. And then you're just like, you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I feel a little better. Like, what's going on? So it's like kind of reminding self, like, okay, today's kind of hard. I'm going to try to just get through it the best I can. And tomorrow will be a fresh day. Because we all will have those hard days, 100%.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tell myself if I'm like in a funk or feeling bad about whatever it is or angry or whatever. That's literally what I repeat to myself. I'm like, all right, just like live in this emotion right now because you know it's gonna leave soon. Like you just gotta give yourself a little pep talk sometimes and just like remind yourself that it's not a permanent feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally struggle with anxiety. And it's been worse for me lately. I've like not been able to pinpoint that. There's been a lot of days where I'm just like, I'm not okay. Like I'm not me right now. And it's hard when you have an added layer with some type of mental health disorder. If there's anyone out there listening, I totally get that. And it's hard to not like crumble inside, and like physically just like it's okay to exist for a day or two and not be productive and focus on you and do the things that make you relax, whether that's yoga or whatever your preferred exercise is, or watching Netflix or whatever it is. It's okay to feel that, and you still will come out the other side. But it's definitely harder. I just want to share that. I'm like being real right now because it's been rough for me, and I'm definitely yesterday, and I'm pretty healthy. I'm like feeling much better with my eating and everything as well. But I ate pizza yesterday. I ate ice cream yesterday. I ate like pasta yesterday. Like yesterday was everything I don't eat in one day. And I was just like, I don't even care. Like, I just don't even care. If I felt like I needed it. And that's where I'm like, okay, this is not good what I'm feeling. Like I'm relying on food for my emotions right now. It's a very regular occurrence for me when I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get bad again with my personal anxiety is when I start to rely on food again. Because I like, that's like something that I just do for my emotions. I have no idea why that is. I'm just like that. I mean, a lot of people do it, unfortunately, but
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's so important to be like honest though, and like share those like vulnerable things, because I think some people that see people that might look really put together, they're like, "Wow," like they just don't struggle at all. But it's like what you just said, like you struggle with anxiety, like that's so real. Because I just have so many like mental health diagnoses. Like I have anxiety, depression, ADHD. So like I think like people look so put together, but it's like you never know. Like, and that's the thing though too. It's like I remember some dark days, and then it's so wild to be like, wow, I'm here now. Like it's just crazy to like come full circle in a sense, and you're like, wow, like would have never thought I would have been here, you know?
yeah, it's like you're in like a black hole that's like that day happened, but then like you come out on the other end and you're like, was that my life? Like, was that me? It's a fucking whack experience. I don't even know what else to like explain it
No,
as.
I know.
It's crazy. It's real. It's relatable. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
people feel these things, and yeah, I like share the good that's just like what it is on like my Instagram right now. When I have the time and energy to put something on Instagram, I'll put something like fun or colorful. And so I admire that you're able to like put everything up and like your real emotions and your experiences. That's super awesome. I really admire you for being able to do that.
So, how did you find the confidence to share your story with social media? I mean, you get like hundreds of thousands of views on TikTok, and I know you're like, it's kind of random, but how do you deal with both the criticism and the support through that platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. I at first was very skeptical about sharing my stuff, to be honest, because I'm like, I want people to see me as a professional. So I'm like, should I share this? Should I not share this? I don't know. I kind of kept going back and forth, and I was like, you know what? Like when I was really struggling, I literally would have loved seeing a professional kind of just being very open and like raw about the experience and being like, wow, like she's at that point, like who says I can't get to that point, you know? So I think it's very hopeful. I've got a lot of support, which I'm very thankful for. I just had a recent, it's so funny though. I just had a recent TikTok go pretty viral, and I was like, why am I looking through the comments like this? I shouldn't be doing this. And just multiple people are just like, it's just funny, but they were just like bashing my eyebrows, and I'm like, I was never insecure about this, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm like tweaking. I'm like, oh man, are they like bad? And I'm like, no, it's just a thing people do for sure. You know, like they'll just like kind of nitpick anything and just roll with it. And I'm like, this
you
is
have
just how
great
social
eyebrows.
media. Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, people, I don't know. I think that's just how people are, and people have their preferences, you know? Like it was just weird that it was something like appearance focused, because I feel like that's like not my like page really. So I was just like, oh, well, this is different. But yeah, I've gotten a lot of support, and it's been awesome. Like just having people be really open from the start. Like people are just sharing things with me, and I'm like, I appreciate it though. I appreciate that like they feel comfortable enough opening up to me. So I've really enjoyed it.
You should make like a video like dancing with your eyebrows or something. Just put that on TikTok. What do you gotta say about this? How does this relate to my eating.
Right? I can only go up. I can't like, oh, that was kind of good. Like try to do it.
Oh my god.
It's fine.
Amazing.
I just do it. Literally the whole video is just my eyebrow, like nothing else. They're like, what is this? They don't even follow me though. I don't think that person. It was multiple people though, so I don't know.
Damn.
Oh
Well, I'm glad that you're able to kind of talk yourself through that positively and be like, it is what it is. People are just honestly asshats a lot of the time for no reason. So okay, one last question from us. What is one thing that you would tell your younger self about body image, self-love, nutrition, whatever it is? What is something you would tell your younger self?
That's a good question. I'm like trying to think of something that I would for sure tell myself. I feel like it could be kind of cheesy, but I think it's just like knowing that I will get through what I'm going through and that like my body isn't the most important thing about me. Because I think, especially with females, with girls, I think we focus so much on our appearance and stuff. And I mean, like, it's really hard not to. But I think it's like we think that's so important that like our whole mind is so consumed by just our body and things like that. But then it's like, no, it's like not at all. Like it just takes up so much space in your head. So it's like knowing that, hey, your body might change throughout the years and that is okay. And that's not the most beautiful thing about you or anyone. It's really not. It's like the person inside of you. So working on that is so much more important than trying to keep shrinking and shrinking your body.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I wish I could tell my younger self the exact same thing.
I want to have because I feel like I'm a pretty fashionable person, and like I can look cute when I want to, but I think it'd be so cool to have like an expert that was like I don't know, not dressing for your body type sounds so like Cosmo, but you know what I mean? Just like feeling confident in what you wear, because there are so many different body types, and it's like all these little like Asian websites like Shein or however the fuck you pronounce it, and those tiny little things that you order bikinis off of that I have to get like a triple XL because I have boobs. And it's just like, I don't know, there are just so many different ways to feel confident. Like you shouldn't rely just on your looks, and it shouldn't be all about that, but it can really help. Like if you feel confident, like I think it's such a cool thing.
Yeah, I used to watch, well, the title actually doesn't make it seem like very appealing. It was called What Not to Wear. I don't know why I was watching it. It's like,
oh yeah,
I watched that. Yep.
Yeah, with Clint Anderson.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, the title doesn't really like make it seem very inclusive, but it was. They would take people, and it was cool because like before that, I just thought, clothes came in one size, and if you're the XL, that sucks to be you. But it was cool because they would actually show like this is how you make your legs like look longer and how to enhance this area of your body. And I was like, okay, this is cool, just trying to keep that stuff in mind. But it's so hard to find things like that. Bathing suits for sure. The worst.
I wish I could rock a one piece, but oh my god, I either got a front wedgie or a back wedgie.
Yeah.
And like, or my tit is out. Like,
yeah,
not good.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, so we normally announce the weekly challenges, but we thought it'd be really cool if you wanted to announce our weekly challenge for our listeners and viewers this week.
Yeah, I thought a fun weekly challenge would be having one meal, even if it's just like one meal throughout the week, to be very like mindful, so kind of no distractions around you, and not necessarily even eating it super slowly, more so just like really pay attention to the first bite, the middle bite, and the last bite, and then notice the difference, like how good was the first bite compared to the last bite. And it just kind of gets you just very mindful about the experience, because obviously for most of us, we're usually watching TV or on our cell phones while eating, and it's very easy for us to not even like, how was that? Like, did we even enjoy it? Or we're just like, putting food in our mouth. So it's a very different experience. And it's really hard though. Like I've had even clients like have a lot of trouble doing that, because it's like, a lot of people want things around them to distract them.
Yeah, that's a great one. I need to spend more time doing that too. It's hard because you're doing so many things, and you're watching TV or you're working or whatever. It's so important to take those breaks, especially around your meals, because I freaking love food and I don't enjoy it enough in that moment.
No, I feel you. I'm like, even I have trouble with that. Like I'm at work and I'm just like, I'm that type of person. I'm like, I just want to get my work done and I'm just going to work through this. So I'm like eating my sandwich. I'm like typing. I'm like, no, like I'm not even taking my own advice. Like what's going on here? So then I like catch myself. I'm like, I shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. So it happens to everyone.
Okay, we're going to go into our this or that speed round. So Sav and I are going to alternate asking you fun questions and you can just answer them. First thing that pops into your mind. And if you want to elaborate, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be that quick, but we'll just get into it. Tea or coffee?
Coffee, 100%. Cold brew.
Cold brew, oh, yeah. Nitro cold brew, personally, I'm a fan of that.
Oh my God, you get so like, it's so caffeinated. I feel like I'm ready to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cardio or weight training or other?
Weight training, 100% weight training. I do both though a little bit, but I love weight training.
Me too. Reese's or Snickers?
Reese's, 100%. I love peanut butter.
Same. Shopping in store or online?
Ooh, that one's tough. I have no one that's coming to mind first. I think online, but it's like I like trying things on, but you really can't right now. So I'm gonna go with online.
Getting things done or procrastinating?
Oh, I'm a procrastinator a little bit. I would like to just get things done right away, but then my mind's like, I get so distracted, I swear.
Yeah, same.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes with peanut butter on top. I'm literally obsessed. Like I've done it since I've been a little kid. It's so good.
That sounds really good. I want to try that. Okay, we can make like a little peanut butter and jelly pancake, like peanut butter and jelly. How good would that be?
That'd be fun. Or blueberries inside the pancake is really good with peanut butter on top.
Oh my gosh.
Jelly.
Everyone try that right now.
Yeah.
Lake or beach?
Beach for sure. I don't live by a beach though at all. I'm in Illinois. I have lakes, but it's fine.
Apple or Android?
Apple. I've never had an Android.
Jogging or hiking?
Hiking. I'm not a jogger. I used to be, but then I got shin splints and it scared me.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Kylee, for joining us today. We're so happy to know you and to be able to showcase your story. We really do think it'll help others. It's just been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing about your struggles and successes in nutrition and self-love. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I really had fun here and I would love to do this again. I really like this. This was fun. I feel like I could talk to you for like way longer, to be honest.
We could too.
Yes, I agree. I just forget that we're even like recording sometimes, and I probably say really inappropriate things, but it's fine. But thank you to everyone listening as well. All of our friends, you guys have been so supportive, and it just means the world to us. I'm always like so surprised when someone's like, I watched or I listened to your podcast, and I'm like, you did? What? So we just really appreciate it. We appreciate all the feedback and the constructive criticism and everything, and of course the compliments. So just keep it coming, and we can't wait to have more episodes and have more amazing guests like Kylee on in the future.
Yes, you can find Kylee on TikTok at eating.with.kindness and on Instagram, same handle at eating.with.kindness, and those will also be in the show notes below.
Yes, and to become a part of our family and community, join us on Instagram at @anddietsoda. We're also on Facebook and TikTok. Yes, we are, with all of our 4 followers.
We'll get there. It's hard.
Yeah. So come on over and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening. We hope you were able to give yourself a little love today. You deserve it.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and check us out on social media for weekly conversations and attainable challenges for your health.